100 years ago, a young boy was caned and scolded by his headteacher, who yelled, "You will never get anywhere messing about with engines." That same boy left school, grew up, and went on a mission to prove wrong all his doubters. Over the years, he faced war, lost organs, had a drunken race driver make 130 mph collisions, and was the culprit of thousands of bank robberies. But through it all, he ended up creating one of the most prestigious car brands in the world. Holding Royal Warrants for the British Prime Minister, dozens of prestigious racing trophies, the record for the world's fastest saloon car, and some of the most iconic designs to date. This is the story of the boy who created the Jaguar. William Lyons was born on the 4th of September 1901 at 26 Oxford Road, Blackpool. Growing up, he lacked academic skills, but was gifted in mechanics. He used to repair bikes for other boys at school, but his real interest, motorcycles. Lyons bought a 1911 Triumph motorcycle from his classmate's older brother, even though it was illegal for him to drive it, so he pulled it apart and rebuilt it, later selling it at a profit. But the masters of his boarding school didn't value his natural gifts and heavily discouraged him. The head teacher would cane Lyons and yell that he would never get anywhere messing about with engines. If only the head teacher knew how wrong he'd be. But Lyons couldn't create Jaguar on his own. He was lost with no clear path to success, but that would soon change. Nearby was a man called William Walmsley. He was 10 years older than Lyons and a fellow motorcycle fan. He made sidecars out of his garage as a business hobby. You see, the sidecar business was huge in those days. Cars were costly, so most people rode motorbikes. And if you had a motorbike and a family or girlfriend, you had to have a sidecar too. One day, Lyons walked into Walmsley's garage to buy his own sidecar, and they hit it off. At the time, sidecars were awkward little squares, nothing in the realm of looks or style, and Walmsley was the only person making a Zeppelin-styled sidecar. Lyons, along with many others, took a liking to it. There was just one crucial mistake. It had zero advertising. The only people buying the sidecar were those who saw it on the street. Walmsley didn't mind, as he viewed the venture as a hobby. On the other hand, Lyons could see that the Swallow had crazy potential if it was marketed correctly. He suggested a business partnership with Walmsley, but the older man was hesitant. He had no need to work and did not have the drive that Lyons possessed. Maybe he was right, because this budding friendship would soon be fiercely burnt to flames. But just as Walmsley was about to say no, Lyons took a sneaky shortcut. Lyons went to Walmsley's father, who was more agreeable, and talked Walmsley into the scheme, leaving Lyons to sort out the business plan. Later, Lyons and Walmsley got a £500 bank guarantee to go into business, making handmade specialist sidecars. The die was cast, and they were set to grow, but Lyons became impatient. It wasn't enough for him to build up a business on sidecars alone, so he started producing bodies too, including a body for the most popular small car of the time, the Austin 7. They called it the Austin Swallow. The body was bespoke and pushed the envelope on car bodywork for the time, and it sold like wildfire, making Swallow an authority in motoring. In 1931, as Swallow started modeling their own designs, Lyons and Walmsley started to rub each other the wrong way. Lyons designed a long, low coupe, which was impractical to get into or out of. So when Lyons was taken to hospital to have his appendix removed, Walmsley had the design of the car altered. The roof was raised several inches and made more practical. Lyons was horrified when he saw what had been done. But there was no time to change the design before, and the car had to be rolled out right away. This summed up how these two Williams were very different in almost every way. Lyons was always looking to expand the business and find new markets, while Walmsley was happy letting the business look after itself. Walmsley regarded himself as easygoing, one of the factory boys. He also spent a lot of time making model railways and had staff paint train backgrounds, all on company time. Lyons slowly got more and more enraged. One day, he furiously confronted Walmsley, and Walmsley shrugged it off like it was nothing, driving a wedge between the two business partners. In 1935, the unthinkable happened. Walmsley decided to sell out, much to Lyons' joy. He bought his share of the company. And just like that, Lyons rebranded, and Jaguar Cars Limited was born in 1945, and they were about to change the motoring world forever. While the company was enduring World War II, a design by Lyons became one of the most classic Jaguars of all time. It broke the spectrum on what was possible and finally put Jaguar on the map. the XK120. At first, the car was never meant to be sold. It was just an experiment to showcase the new 3.5-liter engine Lions had designed and built during the war. But due to an incredible reception, they decided at the motor show itself to put it into mass production. It was called 120 because Jaguar said it would do 120 miles per hour, and every journalist across the country found this hilarious, calling it fantasy. So Jaguar put their money where their mouth was. Jaguar decided to compete with other top car brands at the Silverstone racetrack with the XK120. Turns out its top speed wasn't even close to 120. It was 132 miles per hour. In 1948, that was absolutely phenomenal. Oh, and the XK120 took places 1 and 2 in the race, and Jaguar was still relatively unknown at the time, so racing really put them on the map. Next up was the Le Mans track, which was so well publicized that if Jaguar won, they would truly be a force to be reckoned with. The Le Mans track was extremely dangerous, and Jaguar experienced a high-speed collision. Duncan Hamilton was one of the top drivers at the wheel at Le Mans. For the first few pit stops, they gave him black coffee to keep him alert, but he complained to the team, saying it was making him all jittery. So instead, they gave him brandy. Yup, at every pit stop, they would fill up the car with fuel and fill up the driver with brandy. As expected, a collision was bound to happen. The Jaguar had no windshield, and later on in the race, while driving at 130 miles per hour, Hamilton was hit square in the face by a bird. And maybe it was the brandy, or maybe he just didn't feel pain, but he soldiered on and finished first, winning Le Mans for Jaguar and waking everyone to the beast that was Jaguar. Jaguar weren't done innovating after their victory. In 1959, they released one of their most successful cars to date. The Mark II Saloon was aimed at the young executive type, who wanted some performance. While still economical, it was the fastest production saloon car in the world at the time. A race driver at the time had to have one of these cars. Even the police used it in the late 50s and early 60s because they were so maneuverable and fast. But this meant it also became very popular for bank robbers to use. And sadly, this became a common stereotype for the Mark II, as they accidentally funded thousands of bank robberies all over the world. As the decades went on, the XK of sports cars started getting a bit old. So in the 1960s, Jaguar needed something new and exciting that would shock the marketplace. A car that would take the world by storm and still be remembered as one of the most important sports cars ever made. When you ask someone what they remember about the swinging 60s, they'll probably mention the Beatles, Mary Quant and the E-Type. At the Geneva Motor Show 1961, no one had ever seen anything like this car. It truly grabbed the world by its horns. Flowing lines, sexy looks, on top of that it was doing 100 miles per hour and was 3 times cheaper than an Aston Martin or Ferrari. Everyone wanted one. The car attracted business people with high-profile public images. Launch photos showed glamorous women in cocktail dresses on the lawns of country houses. It was for people that wanted to travel to the sexiest places in the world, Monte Carlo, California. But the euphoria of the E-Type didn't last too long because Jaguar were about to hit some really tough times. All thanks to one of the worst car manufacturers of the time. In 1968, British Leyland took over Jaguar. Then for 3 years, British Leyland's company ethos and morale plummeted. This showed itself badly in the next series of 2 XJs. They had the worst reputation for building quality, being nicknamed rust buckets. They were always breaking down, the paintwork was terrible, and they left a very dark patch for Jaguar, one that took a long time to get rid of. In spite of all this, the older models still kept going, selling hundreds of thousands of Series 1s and 200,000 or 300,000 Series 2s. But how was this possible? It was thanks to the models and styling of the late Sir William Lyons. His designs kept going right through the downturns. Without them, Jaguar would not be the Jaguar we see today. You see, Lyons had a very special eye for what was right. He used to hand-style the cars himself. Whether you talk about a Series 1, E-Type, the first XG, S6, or the first Mark 7 or XK120, the first of the line were always the purest, and the purest was what Lyons designed. Even today, when car makers design new cars, they look back at cars in the 50s and 60s, take them into the styling room, and see how they can change the cars of today and make them look more like a Jaguar. If you thought Jaguar's story was crazy, wait until you hear about how Lamborghini accidentally created Pagani. The epic story is available for you to watch right now by clicking the thumbnail on screen.